Wait, before I start, this is like the fourth take because I forgot to take off the looper on my voiceover track. So like an idiot, it overlaid like the first 5 minutes of audio with the next recording and so on. So I've had to redo this again. Anyway, let's start. So no Elden Ring video yet. And I won't bore you with excuses, but in fairness, I have had exams, and also Tis the Kingdom came out, so I've kind of been playing that day and night instead of doing anything productive. Anyway, in spite of my consistent upload schedule and 4-month hiatus, here's a small upload I promised 2 months ago, Jesus Christ. So if you clicked on this video, you probably read the title and may be wondering, what kind of messed up music taste does world-renowned YouTuber, influencer, musician, and cult leader Fishy Rice have? Well, you're in luck, because that is exactly what I'm going to be spouting about today. So let's start. But first, I have rules. Since there's only 3 albums here, this shouldn't be too difficult, but 1 album per artist, just so this video isn't just a top 3 Radiohead albums video.
So let's just jump into it.
Now speaking of Radiohead, In Rainbows comes in during a shift in Radiohead's career. It takes the raw instrumental sounds of their early albums, like Pablo Honey and The Bends, and fuses it with a mix of their more experimental methods from albums like Kid, mixing both their traditional instrumentation with synths and drum machines. From the energy of body snatchers and Jigsaw falling into place, to the slow beauty of tracks like Reckoner, Nude, and Weird Fishes. In Rainbows is, in my opinion, the best Radiohead album, with each member of the band showing their prowess on various instruments. Phil Selway shows his impeccable timing and effortless mastery of the drums. Colin Greenwood has what is arguably his best lineup of bass lines, and if I may add, Colin is definitely one of the most underrated bassists of all time, with his ability to both be melodic and serve the song. Johnny Greenwood, as usual, shows his multi-instrumental talent, with elegant and majestic arrangements on various synths, as well as showing his prowess on guitar. As usual, Ed O'Brien brings in a mix of experimental techniques, with his signature Ebo sound on Nude, and his perfect backing vocals on Weird Fishes. Finally, Tom York shows his vocal skill, with a very vast range and his iconic falsetto leads. In addition to this, he also shows his skill on guitar and his unique lyric and songwriting. It is a perfect album. And if I may go off script just for a second, I highly suggest you go watch the In the Basement sessions of In Rainbows, because it is a true show of their skill and it really contextualizes what they're doing in each of the songs. Not only this, but it also has some of my favorite tracks off of Hail to the Thief, like Mixomatosis, and also some of the best B-sides off of In Rainbows, such as Bangers and Mash and Go Slowly. Weezer. My favorite band of all time. Now, if you're a Weezer fan, Pinkerton may seem like an obvious choice other than Blue, and you'd be right. It's raw, untamed, and a show of emotion from Rivers that we haven't really seen since, with the slight exception of OK Human. Pinkerton is a show of the amazing musicianship within the band, as well as Rivers' ability to write incredibly emotional pieces of music. From the raw and brash sound of the electro-comp synth that's used in tracks like Tired of Sex, to the cleaner and more laid-back sounds of El Scorcho or The Good Life. One big thing that makes this album so great is the extremely massive sound that is achieved when Brian Bell, Rivers Cuomo, and Matt Sharp all play in unison. Especially when the guitars play power chords with the 5th stacked an octave down, which has become an iconic part of Weezer riffs, making the guitars sound absolutely massive in each track. Although Weezer has had a few masterful and emotional guitar solos since, none of them quite reach the power that some of the solos Rivers plays on this album have. Climactic build-ups leading into absolutely screeching solos with chaos and speed. Guitar techniques many wouldn't even think to use in a solo, such as the pick tapping heard in Tired of Sex. The vocals are raw, and although the backing and lead vocals aren't completely perfect, every note and every word Rivers sings feels powerful and is backed by a tidal wave of feeling and emotion. In conjunction with this immense vocal power, the tones of each instrument perfectly reflect the album. It is an emotional mess and whirlwind, with every instrument having grit and dirt. From the extremely loud and brash drumming of Pat Wilson, to the grit and fuzz of Matt Sharp's bass. I could go on for days, but I shouldn't. And not to mention, this album is a concept album, meaning not only did the tracks stand out on their own, but when played together in the album format, they really come together into a massive symphony of sound. Now, what would a top albums video be without the Beatles? But why Abbey Road though? Isn't this the Coward's choice? A safe album with some of their biggest songs. Why not the White Album or Sgt. Pepper's? I'll tell you why. The Side 2 medley. If you know me in person, you'll know I like to collect physical media like CDs. Why? Who knows, but I do. And out of all of my CDs, Abbey Road is probably my most listened to. With endless late night run-throughs, with each listen of the Side 2 medley feeling like the first time. If you haven't listened to this album all the way through, outside of Come Together or Here Comes the Sun, I highly recommend you do, because it is what I would say is the definitive album experience. Although there is some experimentation that can be heard in other later Beatles tracks, this really is just four guys playing music together, just like they started, with a little bit of help of course. And despite their disputes seen in their later years, they still ended up making something that feels truly special. It features some of Paul McCartney's best melodic bass lines, like the one from Something. Some of the best vocal harmonies I've ever heard in my life from John, Paul and George, as well as some of the most in-pocket drumming I've ever heard. On top of what is one of the greatest drum solos of all time off of The End from Ringo. Both John and George's standout guitar techniques, solos and tones stand out on their respective songs, as well as all four of them writing at least one track on this album, with the best one obviously being Octopus's Garden. It is an album that features some of their coolest songs, as well as some of the most emotional songs, like the final three tracks, excluding Her Majesty, with George Martin's orchestral arrangements coming in full force, alongside Paul's blissful vocals and piano playing. But let's talk about the end. The final Beatles song. A send-off to a decade of their dominance and innovation. It displays everything that makes the Beatles so great. Back and forth solos between John and George, immensely powerful drumming that serves the song from Ringo, as well as Paul's incredible bass lines, and it's all tied off with a blissful guitar solo and one final orchestral chord. Well, that was that. New type of content again, but don't worry, Soul's OST analysis isn't going anywhere. But unlike soundtracks, I feel a tiny bit more qualified to talk about this type of music. I really hope you enjoyed, but if you don't enjoy this type of content, please do say in the comments, because I'm thinking of trying a bunch of different music-related subjects, and getting all your feedback on what you may like or may want in the future is really helpful. I'm thinking of putting a few of these smaller uploads in between some of my bigger Soulsborne uploads, just to keep you all entertained between my spacious upload schedule. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I really hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you in like a month or whatever. Subscribe please, I beg, I will call after me.